And I'm still playing Spock. We just made Star Trek V just before I left the States.
Not another one.
Yeah, another one.
Hollywood is full of stories about actors who rise to stardom, live in the limelight, and never look back. But sometimes, the glitz and glamour aren't enough, or worse, they become a prison. This is the story of a Star Trek actor whose face became instantly recognizable to fans, whose career seemed destined for greatness, yet who made a shocking choice that left everyone baffled. He didn't leave for a scandal, a feud, or a scandalous fall from grace. No, he walked away quietly, trading the flashing cameras and red carpets for a life behind the wheel of a taxicab. At the height of his career, fans adored him. Comic conventions, autograph signings, and interviews were routine. And yet there was a private struggle no one saw. Fame, as dazzling as it seemed, came with pressures he couldn't reconcile with his sense of self. The constant public scrutiny, the typecasting, and the relentless expectations of Hollywood began to weigh heavily. While most would do anything to stay in the limelight, he found himself craving simplicity, privacy, and an ordinary life. When he finally stepped away, the reaction was immediate. Rumors circulated. Did he fall out with the producers? Was there a health issue? But the truth was far simpler and far stranger. He wanted to drive a taxi, to meet everyday people, hear their stories, and experience life unfiltered. Fans were shocked. Colleagues were stunned. And the media? They couldn't understand why someone would give up fame for something so ordinary. Yet in doing so, he found a freedom that fame could never provide. This isn't just a story about quitting the spotlight. It's about choices, identity, and discovering what truly matters when the cameras are off. Star Trek actor begins not in Hollywood, but in a small, unassuming town where he first discovered his love for performing. From an early age, he was drawn to the stage, memorizing lines, mimicking voices, and dreaming of the bright lights of television and film. That passion eventually led him to auditions, minor roles, and eventually the iconic franchise that would make him a household name. Landing a role on Star Trek was, for most, the pinnacle of success, a dream come true. But for him, it came with a price. On set, he was admired for his dedication and skill, often staying late to perfect scenes or help fellow actors. Fans adored him, conventions celebrated him, and the cast considered him a valuable team member. Yet behind the scenes, the actor felt increasingly disconnected from the world around him. The scripts were repetitive, the public expectations exhausting, and the pressure to maintain a perfect image relentless. Every autograph, every photo, every fan interaction chipped away at the simplicity he craved. Hollywood offered fame, but it demanded personal sacrifices he wasn't willing to keep paying. As his reputation grew, so did the demands. Interviews, late-night shows, and fan events filled his calendar. While others thrived in the spotlight, he began to feel trapped. The world saw a successful actor living a glamorous life, but inside, he was increasingly aware that his happiness didn't lie in public approval or industry accolades. He wanted anonymity, normalcy, and the chance to live life on his own terms. The turning point came after a long day on set. Exhausted from endless scripts and photo ops, he walked through the city streets and noticed a taxicab pulling passengers in and out of the bustling streets. There was something mesmerizing about it, the freedom, the rhythm, the simple interaction with ordinary people. Here was a life that didn't demand perfection, scrutiny, or constant performance. A life where he could be himself, unjudged and unseen. That night, he made a decision that would shock the entertainment world. He resolved to step away from acting, not because he hated it, but because he needed to reclaim his life. He began planning quietly, researching taxi licenses and learning routes, all while keeping his colleagues and fans unaware. To the outside world, it appeared sudden, even bizarre, but for him it was a deliberate and deeply personal choice. When the news finally broke, reactions ranged from disbelief to concern. Media outlets speculated endlessly, fans expressed confusion, and industry peers struggled to comprehend why a rising star would abandon the very career most dreamed of. Yet he remained calm, focused on the life he had chosen, behind the wheel of a taxi, immersed in real stories, everyday struggles, and genuine human connection. Driving through the city, he discovered something Hollywood could never provide: freedom. Freedom from judgment, from expectation, and from the relentless spotlight. Each passenger became a story, each route a lesson, and each shift a reminder that happiness isn't measured by fame or fortune, but by choice and fulfillment. As he settled into his new life as a taxi driver, the reality of his decision began to take shape. The transition from Hollywood sets to city streets was more than just a career change. It was a complete shift in perspective. Gone were the elaborate costumes, scripted lines, and staged interactions. In their place were traffic jams, late-night calls, and the unpredictable personalities of everyday passengers. For many, this might have felt like a step down, even humiliating, but for him, it was liberating. Finally, he was living on his own terms. Each day brought a new set of experiences. Early morning commuters shared snippets of their lives, stories of lost jobs, family tensions, and small victories. Late-night passengers recounted city secrets, heartaches, and humorous mishaps that no red carpet interview could ever capture. The actor discovered the richness of humanity in its rawest, unfiltered form. Every passenger became a teacher, every ride a story that reminded him why he had left fame behind. For the first time in years, he felt connected, not as a celebrity to be adored, but as a fellow human being to be understood. However, the shift wasn't without its challenges. Adjusting to long hours, navigating unfamiliar streets, and handling difficult passengers tested his patience and resilience. There were moments of doubt, when he wondered if he had abandoned his talent and training for something that would never be glamorous. Old friends and colleagues reached out, some urging him to return, others teasing him for quitting too soon. Yet he remained firm in his choice, understanding that personal fulfillment often requires sacrifices that outsiders cannot fully comprehend. Interestingly, his past fame occasionally intersected with his present. Fans would occasionally recognize him stepping into the taxi, their faces lighting up with surprise. Some requested selfies, while others shared their admiration for his bold decision. While these encounters were flattering, he found them bittersweet. They reminded him of the world he had left behind, yet reinforced why he had left it. He wasn't abandoning his identity, he was redefining it. The most profound lesson, however, came from the solitude of night shifts. Driving through dimly lit streets, listening to the hum of the engine and the city around him, he discovered the peace he had been searching for. Without scripts dictating his life, without cameras capturing every expression, he could think, reflect, and dream freely. The taxi wasn't just a vehicle, it was a sanctuary, a moving space where he could process life on his own terms. In interviews later, when asked why he left acting, he would say, "Fame is heavy. It looks shiny, but it weighs you down. In a taxi, I found freedom, stories, and a life that feels real." For him, that simplicity mattered more than accolades, awards, or recognition. He was no longer just an actor from a famous sci-fi franchise. He had become a storyteller of a different kind, collecting experiences and memories from ordinary lives, connecting in ways Hollywood never allowed. His decision sparked debates among fans and critics alike, but for the actor, there was no turning back. He had traded fame for authenticity, and in doing so, discovered that sometimes the most remarkable journeys begin when we step away from the spotlight. As time passed, the actor's life as a taxi driver revealed layers of personal growth he hadn't anticipated. The job wasn't glamorous, and it demanded long hours, patience, and adaptability. Yet it gave him something Hollywood never could: perspective. Every ride offered a new story, and every passenger became a mirror reflecting the complexities of everyday life. Some came seeking comfort, others in anger or frustration, and a few simply wanted a friendly ear. Through it all, he learned empathy in a way no film set could teach. A lesson that reshaped not just his career, but his entire worldview. Despite the apparent ordinariness of his new path, there were moments of surreal contrast. Occasionally, fans would recognize him and excitedly shout his name, asking for photos or autographs. He would smile politely, sometimes oblige, but quickly return to the rhythm of his job. These encounters were bittersweet, a reminder of the life he had left behind and the fame he had abandoned. Some fans were confused, some inspired, but all were intrigued by his choice. It became clear that, While he had left Hollywood physically, his legacy followed him quietly, reminding him of the duality of identity, who he was in the public eye versus who he truly wanted to be. One particularly transformative moment occurred during a night shift in heavy rain. He picked up a passenger, an elderly woman struggling to get to the hospital. She spoke little, but her gratitude was immense. That ride, filled with silence, reflection, and shared human vulnerability, made him realize that the value of his work wasn't measured in fame, awards, or recognition. It was in the small acts of connection, the moments where he could help, listen, and be present. That night, drenched in rain yet illuminated by streetlights, he felt an authenticity he had never known on television sets or in interviews. His colleagues in the taxi industry began to notice his unique presence. He wasn't just another driver. He was attentive, respectful, and genuinely interested in the people he transported. Word spread among regular passengers about the quiet, insightful driver who had once been a star. He didn't use it for personal gain. He simply embraced it as part of his new life. Each story, each conversation, became a thread in the tapestry of his personal growth. He began documenting small anecdotes and experiences in a private journal, noting lessons, observations, and reflections that enriched his understanding of people, society, and himself. Interestingly, the actor didn't completely abandon his connection to Hollywood. Occasionally, he would consult on minor projects, lend advice to aspiring actors, or even participate in fan conventions, but always on his own terms. These selective interactions allowed him to retain the skills and relationships he had developed over decades, without compromising the life he had chosen. The balance between his past and present became a guiding principle, showing that leaving the spotlight didn't mean abandoning talent. It meant redefining it in a way that served his happiness. Ultimately, his journey from television fame to taxi driver was less about rejection of Hollywood and more about affirmation of self. It was a deliberate choice to prioritize freedom, human connection, and authenticity over public admiration and external validation. Through ordinary rides and everyday interactions, he discovered extraordinary lessons. That fulfillment doesn't come from applause, that identity is self-determined, and that sometimes the most meaningful stories are the ones lived quietly, away from the cameras. The final chapter of this extraordinary journey reveals the deeper impact of his decision, not just on his life, but on those around him. As the years went by, his former colleagues, fans, and even Hollywood insiders began to understand the magnitude of what he had done. Walking away from fame wasn't an impulsive escape. It was a conscious, deliberate step toward living authentically. His life as a taxi driver became more than a career. It became a statement about freedom, choice, and the pursuit of genuine happiness. Over time, the actor developed a unique routine. Mornings were dedicated to shorter, calmer rides, where he could engage with elderly passengers, families, and regular clients. Afternoons brought the city's bustling chaos, forcing him to navigate traffic, handle impatient commuters, and remain composed in high-pressure situations. Nights, however, became sacred. During long, solitary shifts, he reflected on his past, planned for personal projects, and observed the quiet rhythms of the city. These hours provided clarity he had never experienced amid Hollywood's constant noise, reinforcing why he had chosen this life. What surprised him most was the response from people he transported. Strangers opened up in ways they might never have in their everyday lives. Stories of loss, hope, resilience, and love flowed freely within the confined space of the cab. He listened, advised when asked, and silently absorbed these narratives. Through these interactions, he realized that he was contributing to the lives of others in a meaningful, personal way. A sense of fulfillment no award, role, or public accolade had ever offered. In many ways, he had become an unseen connector, weaving a web of human experiences, empathy, and understanding throughout the city. His story eventually caught the attention of journalists and biographers curious about his dramatic career shift. Many framed it as a cautionary tale about leaving fame behind, but he viewed it differently. For him, it was a testament to the courage it takes to pursue one's own path. even when it defies societal expectations. He often reflected on how leaving Hollywood allowed him to reclaim control over his narrative, rediscover his passions, and prioritize mental and emotional well-being above all else. Despite the drastic change, he maintained a quiet connection to his acting roots. Occasionally, he offered guidance to young performers or shared anecdotes from his Star Trek days, but only when he felt it could inspire rather than confine. He had learned that fame, while transient and seductive, could never replace personal fulfillment. By stepping away, he had not abandoned his identity. He had expanded it, embracing dimensions of himself that Hollywood had never allowed to flourish. In the end, his journey is a powerful reminder that true success is subjective. While the world measures achievement in awards, popularity, and recognition, he measured it in freedom, connection, and inner peace. Driving his taxi, navigating the streets, and engaging with countless strangers, he discovered a richness of life few ever experience. The actor who left the glimmering lights of fame behind found something far brighter. A life lived authentically, with purpose and meaning on his own terms.